with that, I think we're at the end. Josh, would you like to introduce our guest speakers for today?
So we're very fortunate to be joined by the Portland Pearl Rotary Club today. Our speakers will be Don, Lou, and Diane, who are all going to be talking, sharing about their social justice committee. As you all know, we have our fairly new DEI committee, so we thought it would be great to have have their club come out and share about their committee and how their journey with that. So I'd like to introduce Don, Lou, and Diane.
Thank you, Josh. Again, good afternoon. I must say I like the vibe of your club. We brag also, and there's a spirit. I can feel sort of a fellow Rotarian spirit between Pearl or wherever we are today and Forest Grove. I'll go first, and I'll do some background on the formation of our committee, and Diane will talk about our goals and what we're involved, and then Lou will do a DEI update and assessment. So that's the order. Just by intro, I'm a past president of this club, as is Lou, and Diane is the current club service director. So let me take you back. Let me start by taking you back to the summer of 2016. You may remember this came after the deaths, or some would say murders, of Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Jamar Clark. And the one that caught particularly our eye was a police killing in a car stop in St. Paul, Minnesota. You may remember this one. You may remember it by name, Philando Castile. He was driving. He was pulled over for a taillight. His girlfriend was with him in the car, and there was a 4-year-old daughter, her 4-year-old daughter in the back seat. The situation escalated. I'm sorry. Thanks, Josh. The situation escalated to the point that Castillo died on the scene. That began a discussion with some of our Rotarians about what is the role, what is our role, what is the role in Rotary, and specifically Pearl Rotary, in issues of race relations, racism, privilege. 5 of us met around a table and talked for about 3 hours. And we were asking the questions. And at the time in our district, in 5100 also, there was a time when peace committees were being built. And we were sending peace scholars all over the world, including our club had 2 over the last years that went. We were asking ourselves the question, are we putting the same emphasis on peace and conflict resolution in our community, in our city, in our relations, as we do internationally? And that led to, well, would there be interest in the club? And we had about 20 people, maybe 25 people that met just for an open meeting in one of our homes and talked about it. And we could tell that there was a lot of interest. The way we ended up doing it is we formed a task with the board's approval or appointment. We developed a task force. If you'd go to slide 2, Josh, please. And we ended up with a resolution, and I won't read it to you. You can take a look. But basically, we said, we began meeting with the approval of the board. We began meeting monthly. Key focus was educating ourselves at first and moving forward. A year and a half later, we were established as a full committee of Pearl Rotary, the same as you would have in membership or youth exchange or club service, et cetera, et cetera. just some observations. Why did it work for us? Or why did we move forward? One, we were open and honest about what was going on, kept the board and the membership apprised. We met any objections with a listening ear. At that time, Rotarians would have had the option to opt out. They didn't have to attend or join or support. But what was really an act of brilliance, we didn't realize it at the time, was the task force idea. And we had a task, and that was to prove that this mission of social justice was relevant, necessary, and would expand Pearl Rotary. Fast forward, today we are the largest committee in Pearl Rotary. We have 15 active members. We are as service oriented and as anyone in any other committee within our club. And I'd like to say that we on Pearl Rotary are putting the RI theme of Rotary Opens Opportunities, this year's RI theme, into action. Question sometimes comes, is this too political or what we were involved in? And is it not part of, is this part of Rotary's mission? All you've got to do is read in the last 2-3 years, Rotary International and its emphasis on justice and social justice. Josh, slide number 3, I will end my, this is a statement, June 2020, so almost a year ago, a statement from Rotary International itself in diversity. All you got to do is pick up the Rotary magazine, and you'll find statements virtually every month. Last thing I would say is Rotary has done studies of this and asked the question, should Rotary clubs hold diversity, equity, and inclusion assessments? 76% of Rotarians say yes. Only 5% of Rotarians under the age of 40 said no. I believe this meets the 4-way test. You can be the judge within your club, and we've got a long way to go for social justice and the shooting in Atlanta, which has such a racial overtone, reminds us of that. With that, I'll take questions later, but let's move on to Diane. And thanks for your interest in letting us tell our story. Diane.
Great, thank you so much. It's really great to be here today. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about our initiatives and kind of how we developed these. As a task force and then eventually a committee, we collectively developed our initiatives, and now we reevaluate those on an annual basis and fine tune them as necessary. But when developing the initiatives, we wanted to use the Rotary criteria, the object of Rotary, code of conduct, 4-way test, and really recognizing that this had an opportunity to enhance and give social justice guidance to all the areas of service. Each initiative has a purpose statement. So it has a why, a what, a how, a who. So a purpose statement, a plan, a desired outcome, and then point people. So within our committee, there are subcommittees that address each of these initiatives. And we really wanted to, as Don mentioned, we wanted to create an opportunity for diversity of learning, diverse learning styles, give variety, and certainly choice to participate. At the start, our primary and initial priority was to educate ourselves. And so that really was probably our most important element in getting started. We utilized and attended events. We invited leadership within our community to join our meetings and share experience and perspective. We took it upon ourselves to soak up as much information as we could about social justice issues. And the reason for that is that we did not want to place the burden of teaching us on people who were experiencing injustice, oppression, and marginalization. And this still remains a core value in all of our committee meetings. That continuing education, which you'll see as one of the initiatives, is a key element through all of those. So as you can see the list here, book club, calendar, programs and speakers. I just want to kind of touch on and highlight a couple of these. The programs and speakers, I would say at this point, probably 25 to 30% of our meetings throughout the year have some sort of social justice focus, whether it be the program speaker or just a highlight within the context of the meeting of an educational moment, recognizing whether it's a Black History Month, whether it's other events that are kind of on the calendar to ensure that, again, we are providing that, that focus on a routine basis. The workshops and dialogues, and Don and Lou, correct me, but I think we've hosted probably 5 or 6 events over the course of the past few years where we invite our members, but also external folks from the community to participate in education and dialogue about social justice issues. And this is part of, again, the continuing education. Community partnerships was really one of our, probably our first actions that we took in that we wanted to build and forge mutually beneficial relationships with community partnerships. And I think the most prominent example that we have is that we have Students of the Month from one of the probably more affluent high schools in the Portland area, and that's Lincoln High School. And we decided that we wanted to extend that and invited a program within McDaniel High School, which was formerly Madison High School, that serves kiddos who tend to be a little bit more in lower income and more disadvantaged areas of the Portland area. So have now invited kiddos from those, both of those schools now. So we have Students of the Month from both programs and provide scholarship opportunities for students from both schools. And so that, again, was probably our very first action in our community partnerships. The other element that I just want to highlight is that marketing piece. And we decided early on, in the spirit of DEI, that every member of the Portland Pearl Rotary Club is a member of the Social Justice Committee. And so anybody is invited at any time to participate, but just by nature of that inclusivity, everybody is welcome. But we have opportunities now. Today is an example of being able to tell our story. And the goal is to be able to replicate this within the district and beyond. I'm going to turn it over to Lou for the last initiative, but certainly not the least in terms of increasing our club diversity.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Forest Grove, for having us have the opportunity to share our journey in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and social justice, and overall just being a Rotarian. When you think about the 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Would it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? When you juxtapose that 4-way test and the spirit, tenet, practice of diversity, equity, and inclusion, they are in complete alignment. I do not see friction at all. In fact, I see a great opportunity that we have to build on already what we say we are as Rotarian. And so this is really just an evolution, a continuation, a next level in the conversation, given the realities that we're facing in our respective communities. And so when we came together as Pearl Rotarians to start first a task force, as Don Smith shared, and then turning it into a committee, this was an opportunity for us to look at our club and see if indeed, in fact, we are living up to those tenets that I just talked about. Let's start with diversity.
Excuse me, Lou. Josh, can you put up that last slide? Sorry, Lou.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Appreciate it. In order to know where you're going, it's important to know where you've been and to kind of do an assessment of where your club is. Just looking at, my computer screen and looking at the diversity in your own club at Forest Grove, and appreciating what everyone brings to the conversation. It was important for us to reach out to our club. So we put together a survey that was both in terms of quantitative and qualitative data that we needed to gather and tap into the richness of our existing members. And then my favorite was really the qualitative part of things, asking your own members what they think it would take, or what are some of their suggestions and ideas on ways you can make your club more diverse, more equitable, and more inclusive. So that's the fun part. And we decided to start doing it every 2 to 3 years, just so that we can monitor the progress or the plateaus or the lack thereof. It's important to get the data directly from your team. And so if you can see on the screen, these are some of the findings and feedback or feed forward that we received from the team. Now, I was super excited to hear that you guys already have a DEI committee. So that's fantastic. So when we unpack those 3 buckets, diversity is nothing more than representation. And representation matters. In any room that you enter, ask yourself the following: who's in the room and who's not? Simple as that. Who's in a room and who's not? Because the dance is always between over-representation and under-representation. And anytime you have over-representation, you lose. Anytime you have under-representation, you lose. But when you have variety of opinions, perspectives, ideas, lived experience, everybody benefits from that. And so when you're asking yourself who's in a room and who's not, also ask yourself, is it by design or is it by default, right? That's the question. And that's what we asked our team. What do you guys think? How do we go about making our club more diverse? Second, equity. Equity is nothing more than guaranteed fairness. Now we're looking at everything at our club through an equity lens. Barriers to entry. How do we attract people? Fees, board meetings, location, policies, code of conduct. How equitable is our process in terms of making sure, in fact, when we say it in the 4-way test, is it fair to all concerned? That's an equity statement. Is it fair to all concerned? Is definitely an equity statement. And then last but not least, inclusion. Inclusion is basically a sense of belonging. When I say hello to you, that's about access. When I say welcome to you, that's about belonging. So how do you go from hello to welcome? How do we make sure that everyone at Forest Grove or at Portland Pearl Rotary feels like they belong, and the very makeup of the club is designed with them in mind. And so those are the three buckets that we're able to unpack through not only the survey and the feedback that we got from our club members, but then taking that information to curate and customize all our DEI initiatives, because people support what they help create. So your club is already a gold mine with both visible and invisible diversity. And so getting that information and feedback allows you to, again, customize and tailor your initiatives in a way that is far more receptive from your existing membership. How do you make the club more diverse? How do you make the club more equitable? How do you make the club more inclusive? These are the things that our social justice committee at the Portland Pearl Rotary Club, and in combination with the membership at large, we're able to continuously unpack, and we're happy to share some of that with you, and excited to hear your questions, comments, feedback as we move forward. That's all I got.
Thank you, Diane and Lou. Bryce, it's, I'll turn it back to you to monitor.
Sure. Yeah. If people have questions, if you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask them, or if you'd like to type them instead, I'm happy to relay any questions that we receive in the chat. I'm sure that our committee members who are with us today probably even have some questions about how you are doing things and ways that we can use your knowledge in our own approach. Like
Jim,
Jim and then Amy.
Okay.
I'm just curious, is the homeless included in your group or not?
Absolutely. In fact, our last social justice committee meeting was entirely dedicated to tackle and unpack the challenges of both homelessness and houselessness, and what things are being done and how, as Rotarians, we can rally around to help change the narrative. The need is here, and we're tackling it as we speak. Diane or Don, do you want to add to it?
I would add, Jim, that our consciousness level of homeless in the Pearl and around is, I suspect, at an all-time high. And if you remember, Diane talked about how we would partner with organizations. Part of our initial goals, and still today, is how we partner with other organizations. And we have built quite a relationship with Street Roots, the homeless newspaper, and we're doing breakfasts. We've done dinners in the past. We've had them as speakers, and I'm thinking in my mind, in full inclusion, I feel a bit challenged by what you said positively, that maybe Diane and Lou and Janelle as president-elect, we ought to think about a homeless person within full Rotary membership. So you're on the right, you've got us think, we say yes, we have been, but you know, this gets us thinking even more. Jim, thank you. Amy.
I understand that a large percentage of the homeless aren't from Portland. Is that true?
I can't speak to that.
I can speak to that very briefly. I think that actually came up in our most recent meeting that Lou referenced, and that is a perception that is not necessarily accurate.
Thank you.
So my question is about club projects. And as we all know, being Rotarians, a lot of times some of the projects that we participate in have deep, meaningful roots within certain club members, and that there becomes sort of an identification as a club with some key signature projects. And that's how Rotary works, right? And I guess I would like to get your feedback on how to apply a DEI perspective on your current projects as a club that you do. And because obviously we could start new projects always, but how do you take your current projects and apply some of those principles to them to make them more equitable and accessible?
Yeah, I'll start. Part of this project, Amy, is to pretty much do an ongoing audit, right? Because that's the difference between doing something organically and intentionally, right? So when you start having this conversation, and we've been at it for years now, we revisit everything we do as Rotarians, every project we take on as Rotarian, except this time we have a DEI lens. And that allows us to see where we are in alignment and where there's friction and how therefore to address it. So it's a great audit opportunity to just look back and you pause and you say, who's in our club? How much is it to join our club? Where do people sit? The differences that we have. What are the programs? What's going on in our board? Like to me, it's fun, but it's a lot of work at the same time. But it's an opportunity for you to look over every project within a DEI lens. So, for instance, we had a great partnership with Lincoln High School. We were doing Student of the Month. Amazing students. They would come every month and wow us with all of the things that they're doing, their project, volunteering, going to Harvard, and so forth. And we were looking at it going, okay, this is a great program, but how do we reach to other folks that might need this more? And so we added another school that had a population that was dealing with a lot harsher conditions than Lincoln High School. And so that's an example of us looking at our existing projects and initiatives and then applying the DEI lens and then adding to it.
I think another factor is that there's a big overlap in our club between members who are on our community service committee and on our social justice committee, so that the community service projects tend to reflect social justice aspect. So we work with the transitions projects and serve meals to the residents who are there. And we work with New Avenues for Youth, which is about homeless youth. And so we try and keep control over what we're doing and our path by meshing those our values through each project that we take on.
Tim, did I see you raise your hand? No? Okay. We've got a question in the chat. What type of programs have been most successful from a DEI perspective?
I can let me speak a little to that question, and maybe not as direct as because I might repeat myself what Lou said or repeat about our connection with Street Roots. I think what's happened in our club, the amazing thing that's happened in our club is that we have infused just about everything we do with looking at social justice issues. And it has become top of the mind awareness throughout our club. And I guess a program, as far as programs and where we've been most successful, equally successful we've been, as Janelle indicated, or it may have been Diane, that in how many of our speakers and guests bring a social justice message to the Rotary podium. I think when we started, help me, Diane, we might have said every other month speakers on these issues, and I dare say we're more like every month or 3 in 2 months. And so I think that's an area that has been really successful for our club and has had an embrace also. Some of you may be thinking, well, this isn't Rotary, or what kind of pushback, or asking what kind of pushback you've had. Now, it's possible that someone left our club that just left silently. But if so, it's 1 or 2, I don't think 3. I think the opposite, and so that may well have happened, but I think the opposite is happening also, to the positive. When people hear, and there was a question about marketing also, or telling our story. I think when people hear about this club and its focus and its defining a purpose beyond everything else in Rotary, or in part of Rotary, has been a positive, if not, well, I think it has been a positive in number of members, but also just a feeling of esprit de corps that this is where we should be. And the common purpose and camaraderie within our club has been, in my opinion, has been clearly enhanced by this committee.
Yeah, and if I may follow up with that, I think one of the things that, as we know, all of us as Rotarians are learners. You know, we want to soak up information. We want to learn about our communities and areas where we can serve. But we've also, I think, created an opportunity where our members are not afraid to be uncomfortable. And so some of our topics, I mean, we had a young man come speak with us this week who is bringing to awareness the lynchings of African Americans throughout history in our United States, and a project that he's working on to bring recognition. It was so uncomfortable to hear the the really details of how white people viewed those experiences. And so I think, again, that part of that is just, I think folks are just accustomed to that nudge in being uncomfortable so that we can grow.
And to add to it, I would think about the level of engagement of your club. It's one thing to be a member of a club, it's another to be engaged. You heard from Don Smith, our social justice committee is the largest committee that we have. And attendance and engagement is full on. And that's a statement in itself that this is something that is timely, needed, and Rotarians are rallying around. So it's very, that is something that cannot be understated and is very significant.
I have a real quick question for Lou while you're still on my speaker view. Who's that a picture of behind you?
I'm super grateful for that question. That's my guardian angel, my mom. She passed away when she was 29 years young and I was 4 years old. And so she took on that job of being a guardian angel. Tough job. And so she watches over me every day on Zoom or anywhere else. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about her. She's an amazing person. Thank you.
This has been a really wonderful presentation. I think we're all really appreciative of your insights. Is there maybe one more person who might have a question before we wrap things up?
Bryce, just one, if there isn't any, there'll be, well, I'm not sure on time because Lou and Diane will do it, but at the district assembly in April, there'll be a longer for your year coming in, Bryce. You can listen to us again because we're speaking at the district assembly.